All right, I don't mean to shock you with the different background, but today we're going to be working out of the storage shed because we're going to be testing 5 different garage heaters, and we're going to see, which one's the best, how the different ones work, all that sort of stuff. I'm going to go through each one of them with you, demonstrate how each one works, the different options, different fuel types, all that good stuff. And then after that, we're going to do a big test, collect all kinds of data, then you can decide which one will be best for you. This is our first heater. I forget the name of this one, but this is just like your standard propane tank top mounted heater. So it's very handy. It just screws into the propane tank. The bracket that it mounts to mounts on the propane tank itself, so that's nice. You can just move this around with the propane tank, no problem. What's also nice about this one is that you have 2 burners, a bunch of different options. So you have a knob on the back, so you can go low, medium, and high. So you can go both burners, low, medium, and high, or you can go 1 burner, low, medium, and high. So you have a bunch of different variability depending on how much heat you need, how much propane you want to burn, all that sort of stuff. I really love that. Something I don't really like that much is that it does not have a built-in ignition source. So it has these little, I don't even know what you call these things. These little buttons that you have to push. You have to hold them in and wait for it to light. And then it has like a little sensor thing here. And then once that gets hot enough, then it will allow the propane to flow through, and then you're good. For this exact unit, I'm sure these go up in price. This is, with both of these on high, you're getting 30,000 BTUs. And this kit right here costs $74. So pretty low entry point. And then of course the price of your propane. Let's fire this thing up. Let me show you how you do that. Turn your tank on. I'm gonna have it on high, and I just use a torch. And you hold your button. It lights up. And that side's lit. Same thing on this side. And there you go. Now you got both of them on high, 30,000 BTUs like I said. I have seen a couple reviews of units like this, and one of the downsides that people say is that these little sensors on the side, apparently after a while they'll go out, and then these things won't stay lit, and then a lot of people end up putting vice grips on these little buttons to keep them open so that they can use them. Of course, I haven't had this long enough to say whether or not that's true with these. But you can tell you get a lot of heat. And see how hot they are. Of course, most of that heat is coming up here. But it is more of a radiant heat. So even if I step back, I'm probably 5-6 feet away. Maybe like 7 feet away. And I can still feel it. I can feel the heat, all the way over here. I can feel the heat all the way over here. So you get a really nice radiant heat. Somebody can double check my math, but I think at 30,000 BTUs, if you have it on high, 1 full tank of propane, I think is supposed to last 14 hours. Or it could be 12 hours. I'm not 100% sure. And of course, like I said, you got medium. Low actually doesn't seem like it's that much lower than high, to be honest. I can feel the heat bake in my face. Now, one thing, which I'm sure you can hear, that is a negative that I don't really like, is whenever you run it on high, how it sounds like it sounds like you got a water leak or something, just running all the time. That's something I'm not a huge fan of. But honestly, that's really it. I don't really have any other complaints about it. It puts out a nice hot heat for a low cost. Also, I just remembered it's supposed to have a tip over sensor, which I've never tested. So let's go ahead. Look at that. Safety works. Another thing I want to do is I want to test how loud each one is with a decibel meter. Let's fire this thing back up. All right, it's probably going to be pretty low, I would imagine. I'm going to stand about There's a stain here on the floor, so I'll just stand in the same spot every time. This is like I said, probably 7 feet away or so. Yeah, we're at like 49 decibels. So I don't know how well you can see that. Not 46 over here. Not very loud at all. You could easily have a conversation around this. You could work with this right next to you. So overall, I think this is pretty good. All right, now this one, same deal. Propane powered radiant heater. Here's the kicker with this one. The last one I showed you was 30,000 BTUs on high for whatever I said, $74 or whatever. This one is only 35,000 BTUs. So you're only getting 5,000 extra BTUs, but this thing cost $187. And then on top of that, you do not get any temperature control. No high, low, medium, nothing. You're on or you're off. That's it. And then I guess if you want to consider it a plus, you get, I believe it's a 7-foot hose, and then you get like a little cart so you can like wheel it around, even though you don't really need the cart because the whole thing probably weighs, I don't know, 10 pounds. So that's already 2 massive downsides for this one. And then on top of all that, this one has a cool little party trick. Whenever you start this one up, if you've ever seen Finding Nemo, it sounds like whenever Dory tried to talk to the whale. That's exactly what this sounds like whenever you try to start it up. And I don't know why it does this. I'm assuming it has something to do with like air being in the hose or something. But this has the same type of deal to start it up. It's got the same like lever on the back that you have to push. But this one does have a striker. There we go. And here comes Dory in a minute. This one you also have to hold the button down a lot longer. Why it does that every single time you start it up, I have no idea. Like I said, the only thing I can imagine is it has something to do with like air being in the system or something. And I don't even think that's true because I've turned this thing on and off multiple times without turning off the propane, and it just does that every time. No idea what that is. Obviously, I'm not going to spend too much time on this one. It's just like the last two. You know, you got a lot of heat coming off here, off the top, but then you also have that nice radiant heat. And it does kind of throw the heat farther away at a much wider angle where it has, like the heat shields and stuff. So it does, I guess, do a little bit better job. I don't know that it does over $100 more worth of a better job, but it does do a little bit better job. Like I can feel the heat, all the way, even all the way over here. I can feel the heat. I don't know what the radius is necessarily, but it's pretty wide and it's pretty far away. Like if I step over here, I'm probably 10 to 12 feet away, and I can still very easily feel the heat radiating over here. Let's check our dB from our same spot. And it looks like it's about 46 or so dB. So not bad. I like that it's not very loud. I also like that it still has a little bit of that sound if you kind of listen. Like just a little bit of that, sounds like it's got a water leak type sound, but it's not nearly as bad. It has more of like a deep rumble than it does a like that water hissing sound. So, but I still, no matter how this performs in the test, I don't think that this is worth $187. Oh, that's the other thing, is that the only way to shut this off is to turn off the propane tank. So I kind of view that as a downside. I would like to see some type of knob or something, especially for the price. All right, our next one. Now this is not technically a garage heater. It's supposed to be a patio, outdoor only heater. But here's the thing. I think it could easily be an indoor heater as long as you have enough ceiling space. Because I believe the only reason that they say it's outdoor only is just simply because of the height. Because the edge of this guard right here is 7 foot. So if you say if you were in like a regular garage and you had an 8-foot ceiling, you're only a foot away from the ceiling with this thing, which obviously could cause a giant fire hazard. Like if you're in a shed like we are now, has a metal roof. The peak of the roof is like 12 foot probably. So I am more than comfortable running it in here, and I don't think anything's going to happen. This thing is 55,000 BTUs. So more than both of the other propane heaters, and it's also cheaper. This is only $139 compared to the last one that was only 35,000 BTUs. And this one has variable control, so you can go down real low, you can go up high. It has a striker, pretty much has everything you could want for a propane heater. And because of the way it's designed, the burner's here, and then this like grate gets red hot, and it throws heat in 360 degrees. So if you were in like a shop or something, you could put this right in the middle, then you have heat 360 degrees. That I really love. And also, the propane tank just mounts underneath of it, as you would expect. Let's go ahead and fire this thing up. I like that it fires up on the first click, unlike the last one, and then you can hear how quiet it is. I don't think you're going to be able to see it because of the lighting, but this whole cage will glow red hot. And I can already feel like it's almost uncomfortable, like uncomfortably hot to stand under it, like right here where it's throwing out all the heat. You almost kind of need to like get away from it because it puts out so much heat. I don't remember offhand how long one propane tank is supposed to last on high. I think maybe like 7 hours or something like that. Which I don't know in what situation you'd be running this thing on high unless it was like really cold. Obviously, oh man, it's like an oven on this side. You get heat 360 degrees. Let's turn that thing down. And you can go all the way, you can go down super low. That's actually pretty nice. It's like a nice little fire. And you can hear it's dead quiet. All right, let's turn it on high. Let's get our sound reading. This is the quietest one. I got down to 36 decibels over there. Yeah, like 33 decibels. So dead quiet. Tons of heat. When I say it's like uncomfortable to be underneath of it, I mean it. The thing is hot. All right, next one. Something I'm sure that all of you guys are familiar with. Anybody that's, heated a garage or a shed. At some point in your life, you've probably used one of these. The old torpedo heater. This one was $199 for 50,000 BTUs. Now, this one, and I think pretty much all of these, you can run them on kerosene or diesel. I'm running diesel. Either, that's kind of a positive or a negative, depending which way you look at it. I look at it as a positive because unlike any of the propane heaters, if you need propane, most of the time you have to go somewhere that's open and talk to somebody to switch out your propane tanks, unless you have self-serve. Now, back in the day, there used to be a self-serve place where you could go there any time of day or night, and you just, swipe your credit card, punch in your numbers, whatever, and then like a locker would automatically open, you switch out your propane, you're on your way. We still have one of those, except now, at least the one at Home Depot, it's still self-serve, but instead of being able to swipe your card or anything at the thing, you have to have the Home Depot app, you have to have an account, you have to scan the QR code on the thing, hope that it works, make your purchase, wait for your purchase to go through, and then you can get your propane. And whenever I tried to do it, it didn't work. I had to go inside and they had to do a bunch of stuff and then I could get my propane. With diesel, you just go to the pump. Almost every single gas station has diesel. You go there 3, 4, 5 o'clock in the morning, whatever, get diesel, come back, you're good to go. I think that's a huge positive. Now, one negative, you have to plug into the wall. So the propane heaters, you can run those anywhere, no cord, nothing. Here, you're tethered with a cord. I like the heat that these things put out because they put out so much of it. But like I said, the one downside is the cord. Not a huge fan of that. The second massive downside to this one is the noise. These things are so noisy. And this one in particular makes such a high pitch, like squeal, I guess, that it's almost not worth running because it's just so annoying. So I'll go ahead and fire it up for you so you can enjoy it just like me. Yeah, you hear that? That high-pitched squeal. I cannot stand that. Now, it's not, I mean, don't get me wrong, it's loud, but it's not like horrifically loud. But the heat it puts out tons of heat. But the heat is more of like I want to say like a jet of air, if you will. Because if I stand like right here, I feel nothing. If I stand right here, I feel nothing. In order to feel the heat, you have to be pretty much right in front of it, like right here, or you have to be like up here where the heat's coming out. So if you like radiant heat, this is not going to be the thing for you. But this will heat up the air in a space really fast. Let's do our noise check. I was at 70 decibels right there. So we're at like 66. So this one in particular kind of stinks too. It's obviously a huge downside. And it's not even so much the noise, because the overall noise isn't really that bad. It's the pitch of the noise for me that gets really annoying. That like just high pitch kind of squeal. Not really a big fan of that. But it does put out good heat. And I do like that the fuel source, you can just go at any time, anywhere, and just get it. I do like that a lot. All right, our last one. This one is Big Daddy. This one is the type of heater you get. You have a big space to heat. If this is like if you're used to a torpedo heater, and I've heard these things, the torpedo heaters, usually last like a year or two, and you got to take them apart, work on them, or whatever. If you use a torpedo heater regularly for, you say you live in a really, really cold state or whatever, this is and you have money to spend, this is the one for you right here. This is the Sunfire. This thing cost $2,500, and it puts out 120,000 BTUs. And it's kind of like a combination. It's like a combination of a torpedo heater, but it also, instead of blowing out the hot air, it has this nice big grate on it that the whole grate gets red hot. So then you get kind of the hot air, but you also get the radiant heat. It has a 14-gallon fuel tank. It also has something I really like. I hope you can see that. It has a fuel filter. So every so many hours or whatever, you can just replace your fuel filter. If you got some dirty fuel, you don't have to worry about it clogging the injectors. It also, behind this cover, has like a cartridge type deal that has like the injector and the the spark plug or the igniter, and you can just like pull it all out in one assembly. And then it also, on this other side, and this thing is big. I think it weighs like 200 pounds. It also, right here on this plug, you can remove this plug, and it comes with a wiring harness so that you can wire it up to a thermostat and control it that way. I've used this a little bit. So this one also runs on either kerosene or diesel, but they say that it's tuned for diesel, so that's what I have in it is diesel. One of the downsides, this thing drinks diesel. Just drinks it. I think it burns like a gallon an hour. So I think you get 14 hours out of a 14-gallon tank. It might burn 0.85 gallons an hour. Somewhere in there, between 0.85 and 1 gallon an hour. So it really goes through the diesel. It really, really does the job. So let's go ahead and kick it on. And now that front plate's gonna get really nice and hot. One thing, I don't know how well it picks up on camera. You can tell it is still pretty, it's not super loud. It's probably gonna be on the decibel meter. It's probably gonna be about the same as the torpedo heater. But the sound that it puts out, it's like a very low rumble instead of a high-pitched squeal like that. This, I can tolerate much better. That low rumble it's not that bad to deal with. I gotta move out of here. It's already getting too hot. Let me turn the lights off. Yeah, there you go. Now you can see how that plate gets nice and red hot. Let's do our decibel meter. I'm getting about 73 decibels. I think 73 decibels. I think it's a little bit louder than what that one was. I don't remember what I just registered on that one. But like I said, the sound, it might be a little bit louder, but it's a much deeper sound. So it's nowhere near as annoying. And it has, when you turn it off, it has a cooling fan that runs. All right, so here's how the testing is gonna work. I'm gonna run each heater for 5 hours. I'm gonna check on each one every 30 minutes throughout that 5 hours to collect the data. That data being the outside temperature, inside humidity, inside air quality, and then I also have a carbon monoxide meter that goes down to 1 part per million, and then we're also going to be measuring the oxygen level. And then just as a reference, the space that we're in is 18 by 18. Peak of the ceiling, like I said, is probably about 12 feet. There's zero insulation in this building, and it's also not really sealed that well. Like, if you look at the doors, these are like some type of homemade doors, and there's gaps in between every board. They don't really seal at the bottom, so it's kind of a leaky space. Like, the temperature numbers aren't really what's important to me. We're gonna record them, just for funsies, but clearly, if you're watching this video to try to figure out what kind of heater you want to heat your space, the temperature is gonna vary wildly because, unless you have the exact same space as this, you might have a smaller space, better insulation, no insulation, whatever. So the temperature numbers aren't really what's important to me. What's important to me is the carbon monoxide, the oxygen percentage, and the air quality. Because I want to see if you are inside of an enclosed space with any of these heaters, are any of these going to present you with any type of, health risk? Because, at the end of the day, however warm the room gets doesn't really matter if it's full of carbon monoxide and then you fall over dead. At that point, it doesn't matter how warm the room is. And also, a little side note, none of these heaters are supposed to be ran inside of an enclosed space. You're supposed to have airflow in the space for all of these heaters. But for the sake of this test, we're not. So this is going to be kind of like a worst case scenario, just running them in an enclosed space, no airflow. So what we're going to do, we're going to run them each for 5 hours. I'm sure this will probably take a few days, and then I'll collect all the data, and I'll tell you what I figure out. All right, the numbers are in, and I am quite impressed. And I even made little graphs for you to look at on the screen while I go over these numbers. So we'll start off with the tank top heater, the one that has the 2 burners. That one, carbon monoxide, 0 parts per million over the 5 hours. Very happy to see that. Our oxygen, we started off at 20.4% oxygen. By the end of the run, we had 20.5, except there was a little dip right in the beginning from 20.4 to 20.2, and then we went back up to 20.4, 20.3, and then it just leveled off at 20.5 for the rest of the test. So also very happy to see that. So we were not depleting the room of oxygen. Air quality, started off at 2, went up to a 5, which, for reference, I think standard outdoor air quality is considered good if it's like less than 50 or less than 30 or something. So 2 and 5 are still completely fine. But it started at a 2, went up to a 5, and it stayed at 2 the entire rest of the time. Room temperature, we started off at 39.6 with 82% humidity and an outdoor temperature of 35.6, okay? By the end, our room temperature was 58.3 with 50% humidity, and our outdoor temperature was 33.1. Now, Something you're going to notice on all of these graphs for all of these heaters is that the temperature in the beginning, the first like hour, the temperature spikes up real high and then it kind of just like levels off, which is kind of surprising to me. I figured it would spike up and then kind of just like slowly climb. But no, most of them spiked up and then leveled off. So started off 39.6, ended up at 58.3. But the difference between the 2-hour mark and the 5-hour mark was only 57.4 to 58.3. So basically 1 degree of difference in that time frame. Other than that, I'm satisfied with that. There's no real safety concerns with that one. No carbon monoxide. We're not depleting the room of oxygen. So I'm happy with that. Next, the other Mr. Heater radiant heater, the one that sounds like Dory. Carbon monoxide again, 0 parts per million. Oxygen percentage, we started at 20.7. We went down to 20.4 after 30 minutes, and then stayed at 20.4 for the rest of the time. Air quality, started at a 2, stayed at 2 the entire time. The room temperature, we started at 48.4 with 69% humidity, with an outdoor temperature of 45.7. We ended with a room temperature of 66 degrees, 47% humidity, and an outdoor temperature of 43.1. This is another one. After the 2-hour mark, we were at 65.8. And then it was 65.8, 65.8, 65.8, 65.8, 65.8, 65.8. And then the very last time I checked it, it had finally just clicked over to that 66. So about what you would expect. Next, we'll go to the the patio heater. That one also, carbon monoxide, 0 parts per million. Oxygen percentage, 20.4. And then it dropped down to 20.2. And then it stayed between 20.2 and 20.4 for the rest of the time. So that is satisfactory. Air quality, stayed at 2 the entire time. The indoor room temperature, we started at 43.5 with 79% humidity and an outdoor temperature of 38.2. By the end, we had reached 77.3 with 37% humidity with an outdoor temperature of 38.5. And again, you can see the graph. That one, spiked up real high, and then it really, the last 2 hours, the temperature pretty much just didn't move. Next, we'll go to the torpedo heater. This one was kind of surprising because the other ones, propane typically burns, pretty clean. I didn't really expect any carbon monoxide with the propane. I expected carbon monoxide with the 2 torpedo heaters because, again, you're burning diesel fuel. Typically, that's going to produce a little bit of carbon monoxide or something. But I guess these new, these new heaters that take diesel are, I guess, very efficient and very thorough in the way that they burn the fuel. So the torpedo heater, 0 parts per million carbon monoxide. I was actually shocked about that. I figured there would at least be, 1, 2, 3 parts per million, at least something. Oxygen percentage, we started off at 20.5. Now, this one, we started off at 20.5. Then after 30 minutes, we dipped down to 19.9, which is the lowest dip for any of the tests. And I wish I had an explanation for that. Don't know why. I figured the biggest dip would be with the biggest heater that's burning the most fuel, but it wasn't. And then it went up to 20, and then 20.2, and then 20.1, 20.3, and then it stayed 20.3 the rest of the time. That one, we started with an indoor room temperature of 46.8, 79% humidity, and an outdoor temperature of 42.8. We ended with 76.8 indoor temperature, 48% humidity, and an outdoor temperature of 42.7. Whenever we got to 180 minutes, it was at 76.8, and then it stayed 76.8 for the rest of the test. So I guess that was the max that it could go with the heat that it was producing. But overall, not bad. Last we have the big daddy, the Sunfire. Carbon monoxide, 0 parts per million. Very, very impressed with that. Oxygen, we started at 20.9. I don't know why we had more oxygen that day. But anyway, we started at 20.9. And then we dipped down to 20.4 after 30 minutes, and then 20.2 after 60 minutes, and then back up to 20.4, and then back up to 20.6 for the rest of the time. Air quality. Wait a minute. I don't think I covered the air quality of the torpedo. Air quality of the torpedo started off at a 2, went up to a 15, then a 15, then 14, then 14, then it stayed at a 6 for the rest of the time. So it did dirty up the air a little bit, which is to be expected, you know, you're burning diesel fuel. Now, air quality of the Sunfire started off at a 2, and then we jumped up to 38, which I expected, and then we dropped down to 25, and then 22, then 14, and then 8, 8, 8, 7, 7, 7. So, you know, after an hour or so, the air went back to, you know, acceptable levels. Now this one, I ran this one on the coldest day, so the temperatures are much lower. The indoor temperature started at 34.5 with 70% humidity and an outdoor temperature of 34.5. By the end of the run, we were at 73.4 indoor temperature, but the outdoor temperature had dropped all the way down to 23.8. So that was the coldest. So we were holding 73.4 degrees with 30% humidity at 23.8 degrees outdoor temperature, which is honestly probably to be expected. I mean, you're putting out 120,000 BTUs. Those are the numbers. Do with those what you will. Hopefully that helps you make a decision on what kind of heater you're going to buy. Before I ran all these heaters for 5 hours, I ran each one of them individually for at least 2 hours just to kind of like burn off the new, I guess you could say, like the manufacturing oils and whatnot. So that way that wouldn't contaminate the test in any way and like wouldn't mess up the air quality or anything. I just put them outside and ran them. All the propane heaters have absolutely no smell whatsoever. This torpedo heater kind of has a little smell to it that I'm not a huge fan of, but it's just really in the beginning when it first starts up or when you shut it down. The Sunfire, surprisingly, has nothing. It had a little bit of a smell whenever it was brand new and it was like burning off the oils or whatever, but after that, you can start it up now and there's nothing. While these numbers do show that it's safe to run any of these heaters inside of an enclosed space with no ventilation, you absolutely should never run any of these heaters inside of an enclosed space without ventilation. Always have ventilation. That's it. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one.